Welcome home, everybody. I, for almost 14 years, was a real estate agent for the Walt Disney Company, and I sold real estate interests to the Disney Vacation Club. Who here is familiar with Disney Vacation Club? I know at least one person is, because that person is now a founder, Teresa Wilson, her husband Dennis Porter, of Stars and Stripes in Bass Lake. She had my phone number in her cell phone when I reached out to her to be a side partner, because I'm formerly an insider as well. And I had sold her years ago. How long ago do you think did I sell you Disney Vacation Club? 15 years ago, I met Teresa Wilson at Disney Vacation Club. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story and how that relates to my real estate business, because I was a real estate agent for the Walt Disney Company. Mickey Mouse was my boss. So my hope for you today is that you take away three things. And the first one is that not the people here at the side conference, but so many people struggle with the differentiation. I want you to be inspired to create presentations that will allow you to not just be another agent. I want you to be unique. And the second thing is something that Disney does very well, is they're never stagnant. They're always improving, and I'd love for you to be inspired to change up your buyer presentations, your listing presentations on a regular basis. And then finally, a system I use for my presentations called the STAR. So it's an acronym I'll share with you towards the end. Now, I have some Disney swag, so some of you have already come and looked at it. I have 8 items here. So I'm going to sprinkle in some Disney trivia, very easy stuff, kid stuff, and just to make it a little interesting. And what you see on the screen here is Mr. Walt Disney. When I was hired as a Disney cast member, one of the things they make you do is go through traditions training. And traditions is all about learning the culture of what Mr. Walt Disney believed in. And it was a culture of excellence, it was a culture of storytelling, and everything pixie dust magical. It was an amazing way to learn how to run my business. Now in this picture, you see Walt doing this here. Does anyone know why you're seeing this picture? See, Mr. Walt Disney almost always had a cigarette in his hand. And so his marketing staff started, when they were able to, erasing that cigarette. And the story goes, in traditions training, they didn't tell us this, that we cannot point with one finger. So if someone asks you, where's the restroom, you never go like this. The restroom is in this direction. The restaurant you're looking for is in this direction. And the legend says that we do this out of respect for Walt. However, in traditions training, they told us that the reason we do it is because it can be offensive in some cultures to point with one finger. So this way we're respectful. So growing up, my parents said, I was a very quiet, shy, and very introverted child. So I was the kid where when they're introducing me to the aunt and uncle or the long-lost cousins, and Nelida, go say hi. Nelida, they're saying hello to you, and I would just do this. So I'm very much an introvert, trained to not be one. Obviously, you can't be in any sort of sales if you're an introvert. You have to learn how to get out of that. That's me in my natural state, and that's when I was cute. My happy place was always Disneyland. There I would smile. There I would do everything the opposite that I normally would. And although my parents didn't have the money to vacation, one of the things that we could count on, my younger brother and I, is that they would save money every year so that we could go to Disneyland. And he and I would just cross off the dates on the calendar on the wall, counting down to the days that we would be at Disneyland. But what's interesting is how I got on this stage today is really unique. It's very different. And my love for real estate started when I was a little girl. And the reason is I was a translator for my parents. Both my parents immigrated from Mexico in 1961, and when they got married, they got their alien registration cards, their visas, and I was born here. So I was immersed into the school education system. We lived in an area where there was no one else like me. They had no resources to teach me English, to speak to me. So for about the first 7 years of my life, my world was silent. I didn't understand anything anyone said, so it was very, very quiet. And it wasn't until about second grade that I have memories of actually conversing with people and knowing people's names. But on the flip side to that, I also, in that immersion process, don't have an accent, hopefully, in Spanish or in English. Now, the reason I have a love for real estate is my parents came from, they were ranchers, farms, and the concept of renting was so foreign to them, they could not understand why they had to rent and not own something. So their very first goal was to save enough money to buy their first home, and I was the age of 5 when that happened. And my father found that, the community we were in lended itself to us growing up, my brother and I, into maybe non-productive lives, maybe taking from people, being gangbangers. And so right around the time I was at the age of 12, they decided they wanted to move us out of that community, sell that home, and buy something else. So of course they went to their trusted, people they believed they were trusting, that's real estate agents that spoke their own language. And those were the same people that also preyed on them, took advantage of them, took their money, not once, but twice. And I had always been my parents' interpreter, but now at the age of 12, I had to learn what words like mortgage meant, what escrow meant. And I was always in admiration of the people in the real estate business at that time, and I thought someday I want to be in real estate. So out of college, I ended up in the property and casualty insurance business. In 1984, I became an individual insurance agent for AAA Auto Club here in Southern California. Actually, Farmers Insurance first, then Auto Club. And I was so intrigued. The training that took place through Auto Club was so intense. It was 8 weeks of training at their headquarters in their historic building over on Figueroa in Los Angeles. And the trainer, when she walked in, she was just so charismatic. She wasn't gorgeous. It wasn't what she was wearing. It was just something about when she spoke and just sounded so confident. And so I just felt like this woman is what I want to be when I grow up. And so it took me about 3 years, and I was then filling her shoes. I became a member of the faculty of the Auto Club University, and I became a national sales trainer for AAA. Then I traveled with them. And when I set myself up to do something, even as an introvert, I set out to do it very quietly. I've been called stealth. I don't have a college degree, and they told me I would never be in the faculty of Auto Club, and I did it. And then I had the opportunity to become a district sales manager, and I also heard she's never going to make it. There's no one on that team that does not have at least a bachelor's, if not a master's. Well, guess what I did? I did it. And they gave me an extra challenge. Most of the district sales managers had one office to manage, and there were just maybe a handful that had 2 offices to manage. They gave me 3. Challenge accepted. I took it, and 20 years in the property and casualty insurance business really prepared me for real estate because my goal there was to protect my clients' assets. It was always about them, and it transferred beautifully into real estate. After 20 years, I retired. I have a pension from Auto Club. I was 42, and I knew that real estate was going to be my next career. So in 2004, right when the market was not so hot, not a great time to enter into the real estate market, I did get my real estate license. I'm going to take you back just a little bit because my auto club sales training was very traditional. So as you see here, you've got a triangle that's right side up and one that's right side down. And that term, always be closing, the traditional sales is very much motivated by the transaction. You got a tick mark, you've got to make X amount of sales, go do it, you're fired if you don't. So the traditional sales model is the one on the top, and the top triangle represents the amount of time that you spend in that first quadrant. And that first quadrant is the qualifying. So me asking questions about their insurance needs. What are your assets? What are they worth? All the questions that I need in order to deliver a quality presentation to my clients. And then the next quadrant is a little bit bigger. You're supposed to spend a little bit more time in that quadrant. And that quadrant is presenting, delivering your presentation. The third quadrant is managing objections. Notice how that's a little bit bigger. So the expectation is, well, they're going to have a lot of objections. If you don't spend a lot of time with the relationship building, they're going to have a lot of objections. And then finally, it's the ABCs of sales, always be closing. So the final quadrant represents close a sale, close a sale, close a sale. And it's not about your client, it's all about you and what you need. So with AAA, they taught us the upside down triangle, and it's relationship selling. So the most amount of time is spent in the top quadrant, qualifying. This is where you're peeling the onion. And you're peeling the onion, asking more questions. People love to talk about themselves. The more questions you ask, the more information they tell you. As my mom used to say, that's why you've got 2 of these and 1 of these. And be interested, not interesting. Let them do all the talking. The second quadrant, back to presenting. Now I have enough information to deliver a quality presentation. Therefore, if I spent that much time on the first 2 quadrants, managing objections should be very easy, and closing the sale even easier. I love that model. It worked very well for me. I was a top producing insurance agent because of it. But when I came to Disney, it was all about the soft skills. So I started my career at the brokerage that people used to wear yellow jackets at. And they had a great training program, but it was all in-house paperwork, study this, have this for homework. It was all paperwork. And I wanted to get in there. I had just spent 20 years in insurance being out with the people. I wanted to be out with the people. And when I asked to do open houses, the more experienced agents didn't want to give it to a rookie. So I started to work open houses but on leases. And so I built up my career with leases. Then one day my dad asked me if I would represent him on a lease, and up goes my sign. And I was holding an open house there. And a woman walked in who turned out to be the wife of the vice president of Disneyland Hotels and Downtown Disney. And her problem was that their real estate agent had sold their home. They were building a new one, and their real estate agent was not helping them find a temporary home. So she asked me, will you please help us? Rookie of the year here, absolutely, I'm going to help you. And so her husband was so impressed with my response time. That sounds odd, right? Real estate agents not responding to texts or phone calls. So he had a BlackBerry, a Disney-issued BlackBerry, and he would text me in the evening, late at night, and I would respond. He would text me early in the morning, 6 a.m., I would respond. So when I finally got them into their home, he came to me and he said, you know, we have one position, just one. We're looking for a local real estate agent here in Orange County, California. We're relocating 4 real estate agents from Florida to open up the Disney Vacation Club for the very first time in California. So, long story short, I ended up interviewing, and maybe it's not a short story, it's already too long. But I ended up getting the job, and I had no idea at the time. There had been nearly 200 applicants for that one role, But I got the job because of the way I represented myself to that vice president. And then the other thing that was a little serendipitous was he connected me warm call to the vice president of Disney Vacation Club in Orlando. We hit it off. We were on the phone for 30 minutes. His previous background was in property and casualty insurance. And he said, Nelida, you are going to be so good at this. You are selling paper for a lot of money, preparing people for a bad experience. Their home goes up in flames, a car accident, a lawsuit. Those skills are going to transfer very nicely into Disney Vacation Club because now you're going to sell way more expensive paper, but you're selling dreams, you're selling magic. They're going to be looking forward to something good happening. So I spent almost 14 years at Disney Vacation Club, and they gave me the opportunity to take a semi-leader role. I had done that with AAA, and I wasn't interested in taking another one. So it was a hybrid. They called me a player coach. I got to hire the team at Aulani before Aulani was built and train them. So I had to go live in Hawaii for 2 months. And we opened up the sales office across the street while the building was under construction. I did get my license in Hawaii so that I could make the very first sale. And that's all I used it for. I just let it go after that. I was also in commercials. My commercial that you see on the corner there ran at all the Walt Disney hotels in Orlando and in California, both in Spanish and in English. I was on a cover of magazines, and there I'm on the cruise team. So the cruise team, you had to audition for. It's an on-stage role where you sail once a month, and you're on stage, and you're conducting kind of a game show experience for guests. Now, people on the cruise ships are spending anywhere from $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on these cruises. So these are the people that buy Disney Vacation Club, so they don't have to drop that kind of money on one vacation. The product I was selling started at $15,000, and I could sell a deeded real estate interest for $100,000, $150,000 on one cruise. I've traveled to 7 different countries on Mickey's dime. It has been an absolute delight working for the Disney Vacation Club. But I retired again. I have a pension from Disney too, so I'm collecting them. And then in between, I ended up as a site employee. So I'm a previous site insider. I was an ambassador. Major League Properties was my honor to bring the very first partner in Orange County, California. We've got Teresa and Dennis in Bass Lake. We've got Anvil, Melody, and Dan, and numerous others. Kina DeSantis is here. John Babai was in here earlier. Are you still here? Oh, he just walked out. Okay. So I got tapped on the shoulder again. Will you come work for us? And then it was in 2023 that I came on as the director of sales for Major League Properties. So my role today is to help all the agents at Major League Properties increase their businesses. And what I have found is those skills that are soft skills are very transferable. And I live by quotes. And this is my way as a senior brain, because I forget things, to remember. And Dan Ryland has this quote about charisma. And one of my objectives here is that with Disney, I spent 2 months also in Orlando when I was first hired, learning these soft skills. And being charismatic was one of them. How did you become memorable? Because then now, along with the Disney experience, you as an individual are going to be memorable. About 33% of my real estate clients today are from Disney Vacation Club. Even though they're not local, they'll refer people to me. They're very loyal, so I did something right. The other thing, Maya Angelou. People will never remember what you said, what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. That is so important to me. I have a 37-year-old a mentally ill son, and I have a 91-year-old dad at home. They both feel with every inch of their body, and so whatever they feel, I feel. Last week, my oldest son had to get a new psychiatrist because his moved out of the county, and we had such a bad experience. It was just, we walked in the door, we were a little bit late because it was raining just like it was earlier this morning, and we have to take 2 freeways to get there. And we called and we said, we're going to be about 5 minutes late. And when we got there, she wouldn't see us. They're going to have to wait. And then they saw the next patient. Nope, they're going to have to wait some more. And even the receptionists were bothered by that psychiatrist's behavior. When finally we said, okay, you can go ahead and go on in. We walk in, and she said, my son right away says, I'm so sorry we were late. The freeway was, she goes, wait, who are you? And so he said his name. He says, you're the wrong one. She picks up the phone, calls the front desk, and she says, send me the next patient. This is the wrong one. And she wouldn't even look at us. So talk about feeling horrible. I felt horrible for my son. He felt it from the top of his head to his toes. And I asked him, come on, let's just come out here. Let's reschedule. We've been here now over an hour and a half. And so it's those experiences that I want, the painful pieces. Guy was talking about the climbs. These climbs make us stronger. We were able to reschedule with someone else. We were given the option through the phone, and it ended up being way better than we ever anticipated. So just remember that what you're saying, what you're doing can make somebody feel a certain way. Just be cognizant of that. And then finally, excellence is not a destination. It's that continuous improvement. We all know this, but it bears repeating. And I work for Matt Luke of Major League Properties. You may have heard him yesterday. He played for the Yankees, he played for the Dodgers and the Angels, and these were all organizations that demand excellence from their players, and he does the same for us, and I demand it of myself as well. So renewing yourself, doing what Disney does, reinventing what you're doing and what you're presenting. So the Disney approach is very much a magical experience. Yesterday I heard Martine as part of a panel, and he was saying delivering a surprise and delight experience. I use those words as well, surprise and delight. Delivering a culture of care, genuine care, can't fake it, it's not going to work. People recognize when it's fake. And using storytelling as a foundation, which was something that Walt was very good at. And the power of yes, you're moving towards that upside down triangle. When you're doing all of these things, people naturally want to participate and collaborate with you. So time for Disney trivia. Who here can tell me, I'm going to do an easy one. What type of animal was Dumbo? Okay, the young lady right there. Okay, you both got it right. Come on over here and pick a prize. How about Mr. Walt Disney's first movie? What was that? You got to raise your hand. No? No. There's 7. Yeah, 7 dwarfs. So Snow White was his very first Academy Award-winning movie. Come pick out a gift. Yeah, no. In fact, he still holds the record for the most Academy Awards. Mr. Walt Disney does. All right. Ooh, this is the part that got messed up too. I don't know what it says. So 3 tools for your agent toolbox. There we go. Thank you. See, magical experiences right in the back there. How to be memorable, the visual storytelling, and the star. Those are all creating situations that will help you in your sales journey. So talking about your verbal and nonverbal cues, at Disney, when you're on stage, That means you're in front of the consumer. And the consumer is not a client, the consumer is not called anything but a guest. They're a guest in your home. So when you walk out to meet your guest, you better be stage ready. You check yourself, you check your teeth, you check your breath. I remember being in training in Orlando and somebody got yelled at because they had onions for lunch. And the client, the guest, complained. So all those things, make sure your name tag is not upside down. I've done that before. Just everything about you, but it's also your verbal and nonverbal cues. So what are those? Your nonverbal cues. Now, there are two traits that define someone that does have charisma. I talked about my trainer at the Automobile Club and how she was visibly a charismatic person. So the two traits are being welcoming and being competent. So how many of you feel like you relate more to being warm? You lean on the side of being warm. Okay. How many of you lean more on the side of being competent? Okay, more of those, yeah. The charismatic blend is a perfect mix of the two, because imagine that you're more competent, and this happens a lot on like the Shark Tank. You have these brilliant minds that come up with these great inventions, and they're there to pitch it to the sharks, but they don't have any of the warmth. And although they have great ideas, sometimes they walk away not getting what they wanted from the sharks. So the warmth is demonstrated in this fashion by the gentleman gripping his hands, always having your hands up front. In fact, if you're speaking, never have your hands back here, people wondering what you're doing. But holding them like this in a steeple manner, kind of like he is, leaning in, shows that you're interested. And when you're sitting in front of your clients, those are cues that they're taking in whether they recognize it or not. Fronting is another. So as I'm standing here, I'm fronting Dan and Melody. And if now I'm talking to Viviana, I'm going to front her, and if I'm seated, I'm going to make sure my legs are facing her. And leaning in again, all our feelings, that's how I make you feel that I'm listening to you and I'm interested. The other thing is have anyone heard of RMF? Resting mad face. So I have that. If I'm so intent and listening to someone, that can be misinterpreted as being upset, being angry. So I have to be very cognizant about pursing my lips, leaning in and nodding, just not bobblehead, but once or twice, to show my interest, show that I'm listening. So if I'm peeling that onion and they're talking, I can't be looking at my phone, which is not an on-stage thing, by the way. Phones stay in the back. You never eat on stage either. So being cognizant about everything that you're doing to affect the person that's in front of you, besides the words that you say. The intonation, your smiles, they can signal out a fake sale. In fact, when you smile, and you smile really big when you get those little crinkles, first person to look up Connie Chung in your agenda on Bizbo and bring it up here is going to get a prize. That girl has the most beautiful, charismatic smile. No one's looking at Bizbo. No one's going to get a prize. You don't? Oh, you know her. Even better, even better. Come get a prize. Yeah, if you look her up at a later time, look her up. She was one of the speakers, Connie Chung. She has the most beautiful, squinchy face smile. It just looks like she's just really cares about everything. Imagine somebody saying hello to you the way you say hello to a baby or a child, and how you would make someone feel like, Hannah, oh my gosh, how are you? Right? I'm not going to do that, obviously, to an adult, but it's that strength, that effort, that passion about greeting someone and making them really feel good. I got to do that with Disney Vacation Club because I was welcoming home people. They were already happy. I didn't have to put them in any sort of state. They were on vacation, they were happy. And when you're on vacation, even spending $25 on a margarita seems logical. So imagine talking to me at Disney Vacation Club. All right, so secret language. Does anyone ever heard of Vanessa Van Edwards? She's amazing. If you have an opportunity to just watch a YouTube video, she studies the psychological cues, she studies the charisma of leaders, and she did a study about how she could influence complete strangers to do the exact same thing she was doing without saying a word. So it's super quick.
And slowly, one by one, I infect people walking by. And slowly, we begin to gather a crowd. Oh.
She's that lady that's standing next to her in the beige short pants. She said after about 40 seconds of standing there, she leaned over and she said, "Is he gonna jump?" There was nothing there. So be careful about who you are infecting and who is infecting you. So without saying a word, you can be infected. And what I mean by that is just negativity. Not in our office, but on other Zoom calls. I have been on a Zoom call where they get started, or they don't get started, just people are talking, and finally the person in charge will say, "Okay, let's get started now," 5 or 10 minutes later. But the conversations that are going on many times are really negative. They're negative, "Oh gosh, did you see, I just drove in from the freeway. They've been working on that construction for how many years now? I can't even believe, how long is it gonna take?" And that just infects everybody else. So focusing on positivity, bringing something better to the table, can help everyone else's mindset and just making you a little cheerier. So let's move on to what you're saying. I'm going to tell you 3 truths and a lie, and then I'm going to ask how many think the first one is a lie, how many think the second one is a lie, etc. So I am deathly afraid of roller coasters. I owned a race car in high school. On average, there are 40 global searches on Google for the name Nelida. I have been on 2 televised game shows. How many think number 1 was a lie? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many think number 2 was a lie? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, more. How many think number 3 is a lie? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And how many think number 4 is a lie? 1. You know me so well, Teresa. But you don't. So I've been on The Price is Right. And I've been on Sábado Gigante in Miami, Florida, a Spanish-speaking game show. I don't know why. I don't have time to be bored, but I Googled my name. And this came up. It's like, okay, I have a weird name, but people are searching for it. My parents gave me permission to go sell the car I had and go get another one. And there was a really cute guy in high school, and he was selling a race car. And I came home with it. The car went da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. My parents came running out of the house. They thought it was an earthquake. They made me sell it and buy something more reasonable, and I bought a Pinto. But in order to pay for insurance, I couldn't afford it because it was so expensive. It was an 8-cylinder with a 351 Cleveland. It was a really fast car, and I found out that that car used to be raced illegally on the weekends, and people would bid money. So I figured out, I'm an entrepreneur, an introverted entrepreneur, that I could take the car over to the same place, get guys to race it, not me, and we would win money. And that's how I paid for my insurance. So I am not afraid of roller coasters or fast rides. Now, how did I say it differently? At the very end of the intonation, it goes up a little bit. So what I said was, I am deathly afraid of roller coasters and fast rides. That little sharp. Now, some people naturally talk that way. In fact, I was noticing Guy today. He talks like that, just naturally. And it doesn't mean anything other than that's just the way he talks. Every sentence that he says is that way. But it's kind of implying that you have a question, which then, in turn, turns into a little bit of a lack of competence and confidence in what you're saying. People want to know that they can trust you, you're warm, and that you can help them being competent. So those two things equal up charisma. Storytelling in real estate. So every transaction has a story, right? So create these stories, write them down, and share them in your presentations when they apply. I have now started to create a Rolodex, if you will, of stories, because I hear them from my colleagues, and you can use them to manage objections. When you've got somebody who says, yeah, but this concerns me, that concerns me, well, let me tell you a little story about when Viviana had a real estate attorney, and he did this, this, and this, and this. I index it, and so now I'm keeping it for a future objection, should it come up. So I'm using storytelling to benefit my real estate business. You can also create case studies. So for those people that are visual, they might do a little bit better if you were to put in a couple of photos, written text copy, to provide a sample of, well, this family, this person had a similar situation to you, and this is what they did, and then give them the opportunity to read that, or maybe you insert that in the package that you're going to leave with them. So it helps address objections and keeping a file. Oops, I saw somebody try to take a picture and I snapped it away from you. All right, time for another question. When was Disneyland in California built? 5, okay. Come get one, Dan. Oh, there you go. Yeah, this year is their 70th anniversary. July 17th. I've got 5 more gifts there. So before we go, I'll make sure and spread them around. Spread the pixie dust. All right, my STAR system. So the STAR system is an acronym for surprise, takeaways, accolades, and roadmap. So I used that in this presentation. My surprise was the video. This is the way I started all my presentations when they were in front of groups, when I was on the cruise ship. It primed the pump. It got the juices flowing for people that were on vacation. It got all the feels, and then some people got teary-eyed because they wanted to vacation with their grandkids forever. And so how does that apply to your real estate business? Well, what if, remember, my desire for you today is that you're inspired. Create a playbook from this event, from all the people that you were able to go see. Don't forget about it. I think it's so easy for all of us to put our notes away, get back into the busyness of life, and not put into action what we learned over the course of this conference. Create that playbook and try to create a surprise in your buyer and listing presentations. Don't you think that would make you unique? If you are now interviewing against 3 other agents and you're doing something wildly different than everyone else, and it doesn't have to be a movie clip. It can, I suppose. For instance, I would think of maybe creating a little video about testimonials. Not testimonials about how wonderful I am, rather the problem that I solved. How using Major League Properties, using me, this is what problem we were able to solve and get them out of. Maybe that surprise is something else. Maybe it's you telling them a story that is so deeply and profoundly relevant to your client. So dream something up. Whatever is a surprise to you is going to be different for you. It's going to be different for you. Not one thing is going to feel good to all of us. The takeaways, when I first started, I said, my hope for you is to take away 3 things. So this kind of helps your client, your guest, be ready for what is up and coming. And when I had these presentations, I would let them know, this is kind of like reading a book. In fact, Viviana, we did the agenda. It's like reading a book. You would never go from chapter 1 to jump to chapter 7. You don't know what's going to happen in between. So let's start here. And when we get to the very end, you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions that I did not answer for you. Chances are I'm going to answer them in there, but in the case that I don't, this is going to keep you in check. So those are your takeaways. And your accolades can be your accomplishments, can be your resume, can be any awards, can be anything that community achievements, anything that gives you the strength and knowledge to help them move to where they need to move. And then finally, it's that roadmap. Our next steps are going to be, this is how we're going to do it. And so it's just kind of easy to remember. It's STAR, kind of goes with Disney. And it's a great way to keep you in control of the conversation. So Walt said the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And this is really, again, back about continuous improvement, renewing everything that you're doing, check it on a continual basis, freshen it up, make it a little bit different so that you stand out as being different. Who was here for Side by Side last year? Okay, so y'all remember the keynote last year, Jocko. So this is a little something he had to say about what I'm talking about.
I wish I was a better writer. I wish I was a better speaker. I wish I was better at social media. I wish I was better at like everything that I look at. I don't feel like I'm really that good at anything.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I constantly have to try and get better. I think that the attitude of, hey, I'm not that good at anything, which is the way I grew up, has stayed with me. And so I got to wake up every day and work hard to be able to do what I do.
There's a humility in the military that is looked well upon, which doesn't really do very well in business. And I think this is a really important thing that you're touching on, which is you don't think you're great at everything. You don't think you're great at anything. And it's that belief that actually makes you such a high performer.
Nothing was ever easy for me. You know, I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the smartest. Mm-hmm. I got in the SEAL teams. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the smartest. Mm-hmm. What you have to do to overcome that is you've got to work hard. Mm-hmm. You get humbled all the time. And by the way, if you're good at one thing in the SEAL teams, there's someone that's better at that thing than you. You're constantly trying to do your best. And if you're not trying to do your best, you're going to have problems. So I think that's
I love this.
Pretty normal.
I don't think it's pretty normal.
So even Jocko, I thought he had it all down and all figured out, and he still feels that he can always get better. You can always move from better to great and then continue that process. So with that, I finish up my presentation. But if anyone has any questions, does anyone have any questions for me?